For employers to really help their employees, they need to provide a lot of advice and guidance and support to the individuals. And it takes a lot of time to do that. You have to invest time in supporting individuals. And part of that is to find the right learning programs for them. So it may be a case of going on a training course, it may be a case of going on a vocational qualification, even getting involved in an apprenticeship. But something that is relevant for that particular individual. And it's counter to how a lot of HR process tends to work, where everyone's treated as sort of, you go through the same process. You've got to take it down to what matters to the individual, and then they'll be able to develop and really find what works for them. So I think bringing in some of the things like the professional frameworks like Sophia, so that you can understand the capability you've got in your team. Or looking external, so if it's actually somebody who's heading towards management, look at how can they develop those management skills alongside their technical skills. So it's bringing together an understanding of the individual that I think is really important. Understanding your customers is about being able to empathise with them, to know what issues they've got, their environment, and a lot of that you can only get from real experience. In many cases you've got to have seen it before, or understand and read case studies, or be aware of what's been going on. So I quite like the new Trailblazer apprenticeship model, where alongside formal qualifications, people actually get to have experience. So across a year, 2 years, they actually have to go and find out what it's like to be a customer, to deal with the sort of problems that might come up. Hopefully at the end of that, they'll come into the business really understanding what it is their customers need. It's that customer-centric view of the world that we need to develop as a key capability in our workforce. Well, certainly in some areas the government's doing really well at building capability. The new apprenticeship programs, the Trailblazer apprenticeships, are absolutely ideal in that respect. They've been thought about as programs that aren't just qualifications. It's qualifications with experience, demonstrated, and for example, we're using things like the Sophia model to assess apprentices. Now, that's a fantastic way of going forward. We're going to get people that are really going to be valuable to the workforce. That's now being taken up into degree apprenticeships, so universities are getting involved in this model. Unfortunately, that seems to be where it ends. We need to think more widely than just a couple of specific areas. So good start, but I think there's a lot more, particularly on vocational qualifications. It's an area that we've forgotten about as a country, how important that learning beyond formal qualifications, how important that is to learning. Yes, I think it can be it is too simplistic in many respects. We've got to really think about what capabilities that we're trying to build. Which are the areas that we really need to build capability in. So, for example, in the user space, we've done a lot of really good work. BCS has been involved in a lot of really good work in schools with the new schools curriculum, but the digital literacy agenda is still there for many people. There are still a lot of individuals who are not fully equipped to use the internet. We seem to have forgotten about them. We need to get back into that world and bringing digital capability and just core digital skills to people, no matter what age they are. But on the professional side, we need to really focus on what is it we're looking for as outcomes, because we talk a lot about big data skills gaps, a lot about security skills gaps. What is it we're actually looking for? It's only recently that the security occupational standards were actually defined. But we've been talking about it as an issue for a long time. So now we've got an idea what they look like. Is that really what we need? We haven't had that discussion yet. So we do take a very simplistic view. In many places we need to actually think about where are the real gaps. And if I just look at the business that I'm part of, we're having to bring people in from all around Europe, largely from Eastern Europe, mainly because they've got specialist security development skills. We can't find them locally because it's been addressed very broadly without necessarily asking employers what do you really need, so that we can fill those gaps with people locally. I think we dropped the ball for a number of years, particularly in things like my world is open source security. If you go to a lot of universities, they've only recently started teaching about open source tools, and Eastern Europe's had this for a generation. They already have this in their education system. Yeah. So we did drop it for a while. We're starting to get better, but there are many areas where we need to accelerate what's really going on in business, and look and see where organisations really need to invest in skills and want to bring people into organisations. So, for example, we've built an engineering centre in the UK deliberately, but we're struggling to find people for it, and it's just because it hasn't been in the education system for the last 10 years or so. I think that what we missed was really listening to what was going on in the innovative community. We've got some fantastic companies in the UK. We've got big organisations like ARM that have designed a whole generation of devices. We should have been able to see that the technologies they were building, we were going to need to build skills for an ecosystem around that. A lot of that was actually done in the US. So you go to Silicon Valley, there's a lot of people with the technology skills. It's a ready market. We sort of missed it. So I think we need to listen to the new trends coming up and not just say, oh, that's only going to be a short-term thing. Some things that come up are actually going to be there a long time. They're going to become really critical. So in my world, open source tools. We haven't really equipped people, but we've been teaching it in this country for a long time, but nobody's really taken it seriously. Now it's a skills issue. So we tend to sort of wait until things are mature, whereas actually, as innovation comes up, we should grasp it, look at the skills that are needed, and then really teach people so they're ready for that market as it develops.